Welcome to the SPEAKPact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Rose, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the SPEAKPact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Rose.
Welcome back to SPEAKPact. Today we have a different angle coming at you, and I think you're going to really enjoy this. We have marriage and family therapist Jerry Clark with us, and the reason why I invited him here to the SPEAKPact audience might feel unrelated, but to me it's very, very related. And as we dive in, you're going to see this. What is marriage and family therapist, right? He's been for 27 years in counseling and training, helping people grow in relationships, in connection, and in communication. Much like the same principles are needed when you are connecting with your audience, when you're listening to them, when you're really understanding them. When you make that deeper connection, you have a following for life. So we are really going to show you the bridge between connecting in a family unit and how that relates to connecting with your audiences and your following. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jerry, and then we will dive right in. Again, he's a marriage and family therapist, author, and a systems therapist, which we're going to dive into, with over 30 years of experience. He has been in counseling and training for and in a corporate setting for over 27 years. And he helps people grow emotionally, relationally, and professionally. He's a wealth of information. I will dive into some of the other pieces of his very illustrious biography here. But for now, I just want to welcome you to the stage, Jerry. I know that you were a little bit nervous because you didn't see the connection. I absolutely see the connection, and I'm super excited to dive in with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Antoniette. I appreciate it. It's quite an honor to be here.
Well, we got to meet some months back, and I was just really taken by your approach to building relationships, to connecting, and to listening, and just that ever elusive big word called connection, right? And communication.
Right.
So let's start with one area, and that is when it comes to hearing somebody beyond their words, whether it's getting feedback from your audiences or just reading the room when you're up there speaking, right? I know you've done speaking yourself in corporate and just in other settings. How do your skills as a therapist, where do those skills come in you really being able to understand what the audience needs and meet them where they are?
Well, I think emotional regulation is the key. Emotional maturity is something that has come to being that to me is much more important than emotional intelligence. The intellectual intelligence. And there is so much information out there today at our fingertips that we can pick up, so that being intelligent is not as important to me as being emotional, because the emotional side of it has to do with how I connect. I can be extremely intelligent and not connect. I can say a lot of fine words and still not connect. I can prepare a lot and not connect. But when I come in with myself emotionally regulated, I feel that confidence and I exude that confidence to my audience. So being emotionally regulated has everything to do with my presentation. Can I say a little bit about some presentations I messed up on?
I would love that.
Yes.
I would love that. Right. And just for the audience, I want you to know, as you're tuning in, think about this. What if your next breakthrough as a speaker has nothing to do with your delivery and everything to do with this aspect that he's talking about, emotional regulation? Just open your mind to that as you hear his journey. And our journey is always mostly failures to get to those successes. So yes, please share.
Okay. Uh, Public speaking has not been my friend. I recall coming home from the military and having to do a speech in in college. I enrolled right away, and I was so nervous. I wrecked myself and the crowd and the instructor. I don't even know if I passed that course or not. It was so terrible. And that kind of set the tone for me to be a little bit apprehensive about public speaking. So when I first began public speaking, I thought it was my dress. I thought if I really came in sharp and crisp, and I had polished slides and my presentation was rehearsed, that was all it took. But after several presentations and hearing feedback that, hey, Jerry, you sounded good, you look good, but I just didn't feel your message. And that was really an important part to me because I was not connecting with my audience. It was all about me and none about them.
That is so on point and key. And we just default to that as humans, right? The external, the slides, how do I look? Are
Right.
people liking me? Right? That is all about me. But once, if you can think of speaking as helping a friend, right? When you're helping a friend, you're not concerned about the placement of your hair, how your hair's, you're really more so focused in on them that all of that falls aside, and it's just that simple little nuance, that simple little shift, and people pick up on it. If you're more concerned about you, you're going to self soothe on the stage. There's just things, movements that we do, there's things that we do when we're more concerned about ourselves, and people see it. When you are truly concerned about your audience, then all that falls away and it becomes about that connection piece. So how do you, Jerry, what was the shift? Did you start honing in on that one person you felt like you could help? Like, how did you get yourself to the point where you got comfortable speaking because it became more about them than you?
Well, to me, it was about my own self regulation, not being afraid, not being apprehensive at all about who I am and what I had to say. It was more about just, I call it being naked, uh, just transparent and not having all the right words, but having an opportunity to lean into the audience, the people that I'm talking to, whether it's in my office, talking to a family or an individual. I just sense connection. And the more I'm connected, as I see people come toward me and hear what I have to say, it just promotes more of what I want to say. So that connection is just paramount. And I see it both on stage and in this room. But it came from this room because, you know, we're doing a teleconference or a Zoom call here, and there are a lot of things that I'm going to miss about who you are and how you show up. But when I'm in the room or when I'm on stage and I can read people better, I just can read people better than I can if we're not person to person. And it's about that reading that is so important. I want them to feel me. I want them to know that I have that confidence and I want to exude that so that that can transfer to them. And also, when I'm comfortable, I can accept things from the audience that would automatically throw me off if I was in chaos or if I was concerned about something or not feeling good. A question or something that happened could interrupt my whole speech or presentation. And as I am emotionally regulated, I can handle those things because I'm not jerky. I'm not excited. I'm just calm.
Okay, so there's knowing that you should be emotionally regulated. There's knowing that you should be comfortable and you should be connecting. But then there's really understanding in your gut how to do that. How do I get emotionally regulated? How do I connect?
Yeah.
I heard I'm sure you've probably heard this too. We've all heard this very terrible advice. Picture the audience in their underwear. Have you heard that one? And then you'll feel better. And,
Yeah.
basically, you're making fun of them in your head, and that's going to make you feel better about yourself. So you're going to deliver better. That's awful because you're missing the point. You're missing that point of really having the compassion for that, even if it's just that one person in the audience whose life will be forever transformed by that one thing, that one piece that you share that puts the dots together for them and they can go on
Yes.
and excel. So, what exactly is emotional regulation? And how do I get comfortable? How do I understand the nuances of connection?
Well, emotional regulation has to do with just knowing who I am, what I'm about to present, and feeling good about it. It's it's a contagious thing I have that I transfer to the audience. When I'm emotionally regulated, I don't have to fake confidence, um, and I I just exude something that I want to receive from them, and that is I want to connect. And I'm here. I may not be the expert. There may be a lot of things I don't know, but I'm here to present to you something that I think might be life changing or could really set you up for your future. So
Yeah.
when I'm regulated, I really sense my audience regulated. I have been in situations where I didn't feel regulated and I saw that from them. And then it just adds more to the chaos and the confusion and less to the presentation and connection.
Okay. I think I understand what you're saying, and I think I'm onto something that I didn't even realize I was onto. So before I work with any speaker, they go through a very intensive multi-session process with us, and essentially that's really honing in on who they are, what their non-negotiables are, what's their perfect average life, right? I want to know that first and foremost, because we want to build the empire they actually want to live in, not just today, but 5 years from now. So many people do happen upon success, right? They they get the success, and then they completely hate their lives, right? They actually
Mm-hmm.
begin to resent their own success because they didn't dial in to
Uh-huh.
what I'm hearing you term as emotional regulation at the onset, and then at every new milestone, because as you hit a new milestone, you evolve and your audience should evolve with you, right? And so one of the first things that we have every single one of our speakers do is identify who they are, their archetype, and who their perfect fit person is, who they really want to make a difference in the lives of. So we've got that. And then we need to know what keeps that person up awake at night, right? What are they fretting about? What are the things that they just can't seem to push past? And we really identify those points of pain that they are feeling in real time, and the dream that they have, the hope, that desired outcome that they want. Those are two sides of very big canyons, right? You can know where you are, you can know where you want to be, but have absolutely no idea how to get over,
Right.
how to get to the other
Right.
side. So that's your place as a speaker. You become the bridge, but you cannot give them step 4 when they don't have step 1, 2, and 3. And so that to me is compassion, knowing this is where they are. I may not be there anymore. I may have busted past that years ago, right? It
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter. It's not about you. You need to really understand where they are just taken that one step closer to the other side.
Right.
Because any missing link and the whole thing falls.
Right.
You're gonna lose them. And then the next link and the next link until you do get them onto the other side. And that's the solution. But I think people get really focused in on the solution. They've got this perfect solution and it's their solution. And that it doesn't work unless you understand the chasm that
Yes.
you're stepping them over to. So I'm feeling like if you know you've got the pieces of that bridge, that's your emotional regulation. You know there's somebody in that audience who will never be the same. You are the answer to
Mhm.
their prayers. When you have that, just can't be nervous, right?
Ex-
It really is all about them. So am I getting it a little bit?
Absolutely. And in my presentation, what I talk about so much is build a better me or build a better team. In other words, I'm so interested in improving myself over and over again. At my age, I still want to find out more things about me that are not working well. So I'm about asking questions. I'm about feedback for me. Many years ago, feedback, especially if it wasn't complimentary, was horrible. I could not hear it. I have suffered from shame and embarrassment, and anything that I heard about myself that was non complimentary just caused me to go into a tailspin. Over the years, I was in Vietnam, a combat Marine for a while. And when I came home, all I could know about myself was control. I had to be in control of everything. And I got married, had two beautiful sons, and I controlled them to the point where that marriage didn't work. And and so I, that marriage terminated, and that experience, I didn't learn anything from it until I remarried. And Connie and I have been married 41 years now. But after I remarried, I began to be the same person in that marriage that I was in the first. And when I learned that I was controlling, I was Mr. Right, I was Mr. Perfect, I was all these things, and it just dawned on me that what a horrible thing it would be to be in a relationship with someone who didn't understand the other person. And surrender was never a word in my vocabulary until I was learning more about myself. And what I learned about relationships is I surrender to win. And when I do that, when I make the other person win, then I win. And that's kind of the message that I try to get out to other people. And I feel like I have traveled that road and I have made the errors and I've hurt the people that I didn't want to hurt. And so my emphasis is let me help you get out of this rut that I've been in. And it's hard for people to understand and appreciate that because, it's about changing themselves. And, most of us want to blame, which is an emotional error, blaming. Uh, and when we do that, we don't need to change. And if we continue to be the same person we are, we're going to have the same results. So that's where I come from as far as I know what's going on with people that are struggling, whether it's speaking or in relationships or in their job or even with the neighbors. So that's sort of where I come from. And it's because I've been there, I can help others come from that place into a better place.
Yeah, when we've walked the walk and actually gotten ourselves to the other side, that to me that's the most powerful. That's the person I want to learn from, not somebody who is just all about theory and maybe book learning, but you actually felt the pain of it. And I have found I love the line that you said that you learned that when others win, you win. Right. You didn't have to win at the expense of others. As a matter of fact, it was the reverse. As they won, you
Right.
won. And
Exactly.
I do see that sometimes our greatest strengths can also be our greatest weaknesses. So
No doubt.
you're a soldier. Thank you for serving our nation, right?
Thank you.
Our country and our world. At the same time, but you had to be strong, right? You had to be no surrender. That 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 served you in that role of your life. and it served you probably in the leadership roles that you've had
No
throughout
doubt.
your life as well. But at the same time, unchecked, I guess without that emotional regulation that you speak about, it can
Right.
become your greatest weakness. So
Right.
how do we get, how do we not lose what the strength part is of that uniqueness about us without kind of ramrodding everybody? How do
Yeah.
we keep both the balance? How do we regulate
Right.
that?
One of the things that I enjoy doing is giving up convincing. When I'm trying to convince someone, I'm I'm wasting my time because they want to convince me of the opposite. When I give people their point of view and just accept my point of view, even though they may not, I feel free and comfortable. And uh, I feel like, in a sense, even though we didn't agree, at least we connected. There are times when I'm in a leadership role that I totally give up the surrender and take charge, but it's not all the time like it used to be. I'm very uh, strategic and intentional about how I regulate myself depending on the crowd and depending on the circumstances.
You hit on something I feel like is very, very important. And it's pervasive in this world. And actually, one of the closest people in my world is very much like this, feeling threatened if we're not 100% on the same page, right? I love that you said, ask questions, get curious, just find where the other person's coming from. Doesn't mean that you're going to agree with them, but at least you get to understand where they're coming
Right,
from and you're not threatened by
right.
that differing point of view or that differing approach, whatever it might be. Boy, would the world, would the whole world be a much better place. But as a speaker, that gives you a whole different position. You're not up there saying this is the way to go and it's the only way to go. Instead, you're saying, where are you coming from? Why, why are you stumbling in this area? Let's hear about
Yes,
what's happening, what's working, what's not working, what
yes,
your POV is, right? What your point of view is, and not be threatened. But what if they come up with an entirely different solution that
right,
actually works for them? That's
right.
opposite of your
Thank you.
approach. If it works, it's great. Good.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I like it. I love that when those kinds of things come up. You know, uh, Antonia, you mentioned something that I think is very important, and I have learned that anxious people cannot hear facts.
Hmm.
When someone says, a child says, "I'm not smart," the first thing we say is, "Yes, you are." And so this child is struggling with, not feeling smart, and then we tell them they're wrong. And so it's kind of we want to take that pain away from them, but we really don't when we disagree with them. And one of the things that I find that is fascinating, I call gently curious questions. I never use why in relationships. Why are you late? Why didn't you call? Why are you doing that? Why is kind of caustic. It says, prove to me, and I bet you can't. But I like, help me understand. And if a child comes and says, I'm not beautiful or I'm not pretty like everybody else, I start using questions. Help me understand that. How long have you been feeling that way? What's that like? Uh, what do you hear what do you think I think about that? Just anything to continue to ask questions so that they can talk themselves down. And but you're right. The questions that I have, the questions, whether it's on stage or teaching or in relationships in my office, those gently curious questions can really open up conversation and connection. And it's that connection that builds the trust, and it's the trust that drives, to me, the revenue. The trust uh, drives the connection. The more that I'm trusted, the more connected I am, and the more believable I am.
Okay, brilliant. So trust builds connection, and trust comes from when somebody's not on the defensive. They feel like you
Exactly.
actually care about where they're coming from. I'd never looked at the word why as being an instantly defensive word, but until you articulated it the way that you do, it is. If somebody says, why are you late, or why'd you do it that way? Right. Immediately, I feel like, I've got to explain. I got to
Yeah,
convince
right.
them why I did it
Yeah.
that way. Versus, hey, help me understand why you, or how, help me understand where you're coming from.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then I can say, well, I took road A because I heard road B had construction and I thought that would be good, whatever it might be. But
Yeah.
when it comes to your audience, that trust piece is paramount.
No doubt.
Once they trust you, they can hear you and they can receive from you. So let's talk
Exactly.
about the elephant in the room, right? So when it comes to revenue, to getting those next level engagements, to getting that following, that's going to really be the catapult and the foundation under which you build an incredible career of impact with the power of your voice. How much revenue do you feel is actually lost when your content connects? Maybe you've got great content, but your emotional tone disconnects.
That's a great question, and I think it's hard to know the answer to that because lost revenue shows up in many ways. First of all, if I didn't connect, if I'm selling a product and I connected, if I really engaged with the audience and I was really speaking with them, not to them, I would say if there was 100 out there, maybe I could convert about 18 or 20. If I didn't connect, it could be much less than that, maybe 10 or even less. And if you put the that to a monetary figure, it's easy to see that by losing uh, 6 or 8 or even 10, that's how much revenue I lost in that talk. But what's hidden there to me is these people go away if they really engage with me and they sell me and they talk to other people about it. It builds my brand. And because of that, then additional revenue could show up. But on the other side of that, if I didn't really connect, then my voice just goes silent and the brand is not enhanced, and it's painful to the revenue stream. And if you look at that, I mean, you can look at that just in today, today at today's talk. But when you look at it over the years, it can really drive a loss of revenue. So the connection and the trust is extremely important.
I a million percent agree with you. And that's where your career is won or lost, whether or
Exactly.
not there's that through line,
Yes.
and people feel heard and understood. Once they feel heard and understood, the guard goes down and the openness
Yes. Yeah.
appears, right? I know at this stage of the show, there are several people, many people probably, who are really interested in learning more about your approach to connection and this emotional regulation that you speak about. What are some of the best places for people to find you and learn more, maybe
Yes.
even reach out to you?
I have a website that's jerrydclark.com. jerrydclark.com. I am on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and one more. I'm not sure.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, exactly. And so I can be connected or contacted through any of those mediums.
Fabulous. So it's Jerry, Jerry, for those who are just listening in. D like David, right? Jerry D and then Clark, CLARK.com.
Yes, that's it.
Definitely reach out to Jerry. He is a wealth, and we're only just hitting the surface of all that you bring to the table. So as we start coming to a close, Jerry, if so I'm a speaker out there. I really do not want to be that person who delivers content but no connection. I want to get to that next level in my speaking career. What is one piece of advice that you would give me to just start practicing today to start getting a little bit more in touch with that emotional regulation?
You know, Antoinette, I think feedback is the key and practice is the key. One of the things that I've done of late, the last couple of years, is Toastmasters. And that's been a very powerful tool for me, especially when we do impromptu speaking. And the evaluations that we give and get in Toastmasters are priceless. So I would say that if anyone is going to speak, if they have someone that can monitor them, that can rate them on several different categories, like how did it come across, did the audience connect, or any other thing that I might be looking for, gives that feedback that I need, and it really doesn't need to be kind and generous sort of feedback, although that helps to spot the good things. But to know what I'm doing that is a turnoff to the audience is extremely powerful. And that's one of the things that's helped me. And I think if I'm going to do any speaking, I'm going to have a mentor or two that will give me the kind of feedback that I need. Otherwise, I go away with my own interpretation. And that sometimes is rather faulty.
Early in my career, I did Toastmasters, and I would highly recommend it for sure. And these days, I think they even have a virtual version. If for some reason you're just too busy or you live in an area where there's not a strong group, it's definitely, if you're wanting to kind of push yourself to the next level, whether you're new, emerging, or advanced, there through the spectrum, it definitely, we're not sponsored by Toastmasters at all at this stage of the game. Anyway, but it truly is one of those very accessible, very affordable places that can really take you to the next level. So I love that. Of course, there's other organizations, National Speakers Association,
Yes,
whatever kind of lands with you. Don't make an escape. Don't make an excuse. There's resources out there to really push your career to the next level. And a lot of speakers, a lot of listeners in SpeakPact are very advanced speakers. And I would say to you to take Jerry Seinfeld's cue. And obviously, he's a multi whatever gazillionaire, whatever. And he's a very well respected, renowned comedian. And do you know to this day, he will try out his new jokes at little hole in the wall
right,
comedic places, right? He understands the power of that. So never get too big for your britches.
exactly,
Understand that it's always about the basics. It's always about the foundations, and don't allow yourself to get too far away from those foundations, because then you become unrelatable, and lose touch with those
exactly.
boots on the ground.
No doubt.
Um,
Yeah.
Fabulous advice. Thank you for taking me up on this invitation, because I know that it may have felt out of step to you and to others, but to me, this is where it all lands or falls. You either really land that audience by helping them feel your compassion, feel your interest in them, and feel like they're being heard.
Exactly.
Right? Once they know their pain is heard, then they believe you might have the solution for them. So
Exactly.
that I believe it all lands and falls there. So I so appreciate your time out of your very busy career, Jerry, and just sharing those just basically decades of ups and downs of your understanding this topic with us right here.
You're more than welcome, Antoinette.
All right. And for our Speak Pact audience, we just thank you for being with us today and for diving in to this uncomfortable journey of putting down our pride and being open to hearing, really hearing and
Yes.
connecting with those who are praying, laying awake at night, praying for solutions that are right there, right in you, but they're never going to be able to receive it unless they feel that connection and that trust with you.
Exactly. So well said.
Please give Jerry and me some flowers today by posting this forward. If you got something out of this interview, out of this time, this conversation between Jerry and I today, it's for you. And if you were touched, if you got some sort of insight, then you definitely have friends and colleagues who would do the same. So give them a gift and us a gift by posting this forward. Also, give us a like, a review, all the good things, because it helps other people find this show and also gain the insights that they need to push through to the next level of their career. We're all on this universal pact to have the greatest impact in this world, and in our world that begins by wisely utilizing the power and gift of your voice. So thank you for being with us, our beautiful SpeakPact audience, and we will say ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you for listening to the SpeakPact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the SpeakPact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply hashtag SpeakPact.